Hi, and thank you for joining us today on the week's YouTube channel. The man with me needs no introduction, but for the uninitiated, I'll just introduce him briefly. Dr. Satyamada's Biju is professor at the Department of Environmental Studies, University of Delhi, and currently with Harvard University as a Radcliffe Fellow at the Radcliffe Institute of Advanced Studies. Additionally, he is also an associate of the Department of Organismic and Evolutionary Biology and Museum of Comparative Zoology at Harvard. At the University of Delhi, he was formerly Dean, Faculty of Science and Chair, Head of the Department of Environmental Studies. He has a PhD in Botany, PhD in Zoology, and as a field biologist has a wide body of work, which many of you already know. To talk to him is like is as an ocean that we can speak to him, but we are restricting it to a couple of questions today. One question for you, sir, is about the IUCN Red List, the data that came until October 2023. What does it mean specifically for the area that you work in, which is for amphibians and lower forms of life?
Okay, first of all, I had to say thanks to you for talking something more about frogs.
Thank you.
It's actually, that it's actually according to the recent IUCN Global Amphibian Assessment, we preferably call as Global Amphibian Assessment Phase 2. Based on that information, more than 41% of amphibians are in the verge of extinction. That means actually IUCN is broadly categorizing 3 different groups in the red list: critically endangered, endangered, and vulnerable. These are the these are the individuals we can call as threatened group of animals. According to that statistics, 41% of Indian amphibians are in the verge of extinction, or I can say in the threatened categories. Approximately, I can say that 14 species are critically endangered, and 74 species in India belongs to the endangered group, and 49 species are in vulnerable group. That is the situation of India. If you are coming back to Kerala, I can say the critically endangered 3 species we have, and very interestingly, endangered species we have 46 species. That is, we can see that 74 out of 74 species, the more than 70 or even up to 80% of the critically endangered species are in Kerala. So that is the real serious concern. And the reason behind, that is the second part of your question, I hope. The reason behind this alarming fast depletion of amphibians across the world, and particularly in India, is simply because of 2 reasons. The first one is habitat modification or habitat loss. The third one I can say is largely because of climate change. This combination of 2 things: one is the disturbance of the habitat, and second is along with the climate change, I can say these are the deadliest combination of many of the species are now in the verge of extinctions.
When we talk about conservation, you said that the last bit is considered extinct in the wild.
Yes.
And then, but when they are considered extinct in the wild, the possibility is that there are populations in zoos or in laboratories that has been conserved. But my understanding is that, correct me if I'm wrong, that frogs most frogs at least, can only be conserved in situ in the places where they are found, and they can't be taken out. Is that true for most amphibians?
Absolutely, you are right. Actually, look at these frogs. In the case of mammals, in the case of birds, if the species is extinct from the wild, we can, to preserve somewhere in the zoo or in artificial condition. But unfortunately, we are not able to do anything for frogs. Of course, we can do some frogs in South America. There are some initiatives. They are doing artificial, breeding program to reintroduce those animals in the wild. But unfortunately, many of our species in India are extremely difficult. For example, in the case of Nasica batrachus, in the case of dancing frog like Microxylus, these are the animals that have very specific habitat requirement. We are not able to recreate, or we are not able to reproduce exactly the same condition for their survival, not only survival, but also for their reproduction and the propagation, to go to the next level of life. So that is very difficult, and I personally feel it is really not possible.
This is my last question to you this afternoon, which is that what can we do in urban landscapes to help lower forms of life, especially frogs?
Look, that is a very interesting question. Everyone is asking and everyone is believing, if you want to conserve the frog, if you want to conserve the life forms, we have to make a sanctuary or national parks, so many other things. But in the case of frogs, or in the case of amphibians, I can say it is not essential all the time. We can conserve this very important group of animals by using local conservation initiatives. For example, a small wetland, for a small patch of forest, that is more than enough to conserve the frogs. There is no need of a special notification to say this belongs to the sanctuary, this belongs to the national park. So the conservation of frogs is extremely important. At the same time, it is extremely easy compared to the large forms of life. We can conserve the local small patch of forest or the wetlands, wetland especially. Wetland is a home of hundreds of amphibian species, even in the case of Western Ghats. You can see, look at the Western Ghats, many of our wetlands are disappeared and disappearing very fast. And that is the major, the question is very interesting. I believe we also can play an important role in conserving amphibians by using some sort of local level conservation of the remaining patch of forest or remaining patch of greeneries, or maybe even a small pond or a small wetlands. That is more than enough. For more and more new species are being discovered. In the history of discovery, you can see many of them are outside the protected areas. So not only for conserving the known species, but also you can find the new species even from the roadside puddles. For example, we recently described a new family of frog from the Wayanad roadside puddle, described as a new genus and a new species. So frog conservation is relatively easy compared to the mammals. Of course, mammals also need some sort of special effort, but amphibians are also equally important and are also conserved very easily by using a local level conservation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Biju. Thank you for joining us. And to our viewers, we are getting killed by mosquitoes, and one of the reasons is because there are very few frogs here.
Yep. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you for giving a wonderful opportunity. I know that you have a very good platform to disseminate the knowledge about the frogs and how to conserve this amazing group of animals. And thank you very much once again.